Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. Her name is Kristin Kirk. Hey, Kristin.
Hi, how are you doing?
I am doing good. Thank you for being here today. Before we dive in, let me just give some of your background to the listeners and viewers. So Kristin, she's a motivational mom, an entrepreneur, willing to do whatever it takes to really take care of her family and herself. She has overcome the self-destruction, divorce, and many other obstacles. And you know, it's pretty much an entrepreneur 100%, right? So let's talk about that. But before we get that, tell me about you, your background. Where were you born? How was your upbringing?
I was born actually in Michigan, but I consider myself, full-hearted Texan because I've been here since like first grade. So, I was, I had a fairly, typical, I don't want to say movie childhood, but, I was blessed that I had two parents in the household. I had a sister, pretty average, great old American dream childhood. Not a whole bunch going on there. The problems that I ran into were more within myself than anything else. My parents tried to do therapy, things like that when I was younger. And I just kind of got labeled as, a defiant teenager, just kind of like a troubled teen. And so it led me to, I was self-medicating. I was partying all the time. I was hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong things, making the wrong choices. And, if we're being quite honest, that's fun for a while. It's fun at first. It's exciting. It's something new. You're, living on the edge, breaking the rules, getting away with, that's fun. But after, eventually, and I would say more often than not, that leads you into trouble. And it led me right to trouble. I was walking a path where I was either going to be 6 feet under or 6 feet behind bars, in a matter of no time. And I really was living life without purpose at that point in my life. I think that I had aspirations and dreams and things like that, but I had become, I guess, complacent maybe with just the way things were. And then when I became uncomfortable with the way things were, I didn't really know how to get myself out of the big hole that I had dug. So I had always wanted to be a mom. That was probably, number one goal on my list. And I had been told for a long time that I wouldn't be able to have children. So when I got pregnant with my little miracle, that was the beginning of me kind of starting to change my life around and living a more intentional life. Shortly after my son was born, I lost my fiance very suddenly. And that was kind of when I really dug my feet in and said, okay, you have two choices. You can go back to the way that you were living, or you can, stand up and do what you know that you have the capability to do and make a life for yourself and your child and, prove to yourself above anybody else that, you can be something and live intentional and purposeful. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I journeyed into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I have a couple of things that came up with that. Like, I guess one question I have is like, when is enough, right? Like, I know, people have this adrenaline of going back to drugs, or they fall into that because, again, as you said, it might be good for a moment. When do you think, or at least for you, when was it that point where, like, you said, you know what, yeah, I don't want to walk this path anymore? Like, because, again, like you said, you could either be behind bars, 6 feet under, or some people just get stuck in that lifestyle that is just really mediocrity, and nothing comes out of it. Like, you just don't move ahead in life. So whichever way you see it, is like, choose your poison. Either you're 6 feet under, you're under behind bars, or you're just living this life of being miserable and sad, and or always just finding trouble. My question is, when is enough? Because a lot of people, I think, don't snap out of that because they don't see it, or they don't understand it, or they don't even know how to go about it.
I think for me, enough was enough when I got that phone call saying that my fiance had passed away. I wish that I could say that it was before that, and I was already making steps in the right direction. But I had those wavering beliefs within myself, like, are you going to pull this off? Are you not going to pull this? Like, the reality of, okay, you're now doing this alone. You have no credible work history behind you, and you have a child that needs you. Like, are you going to take on that responsibility wholeheartedly, or are you not? And that was kind of, I was already making good decisions, but I was still surrounding myself with some people that were not making those, good decisions. And I had a harder time letting go of the people that I surrounded myself with than I did the actual, drugs and drinking and all of that. It was, you become used to the people that you're around. And we all know that has a huge influence, or maybe some people don't know, but who you're around has a huge influence on who you will be. So, understanding that nobody's better than anybody else, but that, our paths were kind of parting, and that learning how to love people from afar, I guess, was something that I had to become pretty comfortable with fairly quickly. That was hard for me because I struggled. I had that like inner struggle with, I don't want anybody to think that I think that I'm above them or anybody else, or the choices that they make, or anything. To each their own. It just wasn't right for me anymore.
Yeah. So that's actually another good point. Your network is so critical, right, in terms of who you're going to become in the near future. How do you like you said, it was really hard for you to step away from that, right? Step away from those people,
Yeah.
whether it were friends, family members, I don't, whatever the case may be, right? How do you just start loving people from apart, and really separating yourself from that? Because I've seen oftentimes people get stuck on that. That's one thing that it is really hard. And I can speak from experience too. Before, I had those challenges to be able to just, I know this is not good for me, or at least this relationship right now is not going to take me nowhere, is not helping me become a better person, yet I'm still there. I'm still stuck. Like, how do you really say, you know what? Like, what were some things that you might have did, or how did you change those dynamics in your head to say, you know what, I need to step away?
I think the first thing that I did was kind of take inventory of my environment. Just kind of, okay, here's the things that are, working for me in a positive manner in my environment. Here's the things that aren't. And then whatever things were associated with the negative part of my environment, I just tried to kind of create boundaries. And I don't think before that time that I even knew what boundaries were. Like, obviously everybody has a general idea of what they think boundaries are, but I don't think I was actually applying boundaries into relationships in my life. And so, outside of my family dynamics, I just started, not going places. I would still call and have conversations with people on the phone, but I would decline the invites to the house, or I would, you know, decline them coming over. And honestly, I was pretty transparent with it. I was just like, hey, so-and-so, I love you. I want the best for you, and I will help you out however I can, as long as that doesn't jeopardize, you know, my family or myself in a bad respect. I will help you however I can. And for the most part, people were really understanding of that. So I got really lucky in that respect. I think I had more of a hard time because I was the destructive one, setting boundaries with the people that I wanted to recreate healthy relationships with in my family mostly, and some friends also, but just setting boundaries and saying, you know, this is me, I'm not being selfish, but this is what I need for, you know, like us to be able to move forward and have a healthy relationship. And then also giving myself grace, and then giving those people grace as well, with the resentment and things like that they may have had towards the poor choices that I had made previously.
Mm. So, and that's actually a good point. You know, you're dealing how you deal with the people. What about yourself? Because a lot of times that sinks in, right? You know, you might feel lonely. You might feel, you know, I need to reach out to this person. I need to pick up the phone and text them. I need to call them. Like, how do you deal with your own, I guess, with your own emotions and your own actions?
That's a hard question. I think becoming very intentional. Trying to really zero in on how to become less reactive to things and more responsive instead of reactive. So instead of reacting to a situation where, I don't know, somebody would call me and be like, oh man, you know, so-and-so, you know, went to jail last night, blah, 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 blah. Like, instead of being like, oh my gosh, man, that's, you know, like, I would still be empathetic towards the situation, but I would also tell them, like, man, that's why I got out of this lifestyle. Like, this is the reason you're calling me is the reason that I don't want to be a part of this anymore. And on those days where I would miss somebody, or I would want to reach out or want to go hang out with those people that I had created these bonds with, I really had to tell myself, this is not a good situation for you. You need to remember why. And maybe not bringing up negative, but just kind of, you know, bullet point in my brain, like think. Okay, these are 3 reasons right here why you should not follow through with reaching out to somebody who's not good for you. And that took some practice. I failed at that a couple times before, you know, I mean, that's one of those things. I don't think when another human being is involved, at least for me, I'm a very loyal person. So that becomes a challenge within myself to kind of follow through with that.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I know that's definitely a very, very not so easy thing to do, to separate yourself, even when you know is the best thing for you, to separate yourself from that person. And I think something that you more or less said in between there is it becomes this mental aspect, right? You have to be mentally prepared and ready for that. I like the idea of, you know, looking at 3 things or looking at different aspects of, well, here are the reasons why, and that is going to activate the mind and the thinking and the thoughts to say, okay, well, this is not what I want. It's interesting because, you know, we have at any given day we have about 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. Out of those numbers, 80% of them are negative, right? And so again, dealing with talking to people or saying I don't want to go back to that. Well, you already have those negative thoughts. 90% of them are repetitive from the previous days, right? So your past. And so you have to be very intentional, as you mentioned, and have that a mindset to be able to separate yourself from that, right? And it's not easy, I know that for a fact, but it's inevitable for you to do to make that change, right?
Yeah, I you know, I think it really comes down to, you know, I had a very, very broken mindset. And I was a broken person because I had a broken mindset. And so I had acknowledged that I had a broken mindset, But until I started making steps towards changing that, I was stuck. It was like a merry-go-round where you just keep going around. You're like, I know this is bad, but I don't know what to do. And so it really took me seeking out answers on my own and kind of trial and error, just like trying this. Okay, this isn't helping. Try this. Okay, this isn't helping. Oh, wow, this worked. Okay, take that piece of whatever that was and apply it to the next thing that I try. And then slowly but surely, I started building, back that confident mindset that you have when you're, an innocent child and the world hasn't, you haven't gotten a taste of the ways of the world yet. So kind of unlearning a lot of those things from having repeated negative thoughts on a daily basis. Like, you're right, because even like I'm thinking scenarios with other people, like if I come to somebody's house and 8 times out of 10 I was drunk, well, they're going to imagine that I'm going to come over, I'm going to be drunk. But changing even those patterns took a lot of repetition and a lot of repeated intentional behavior to try to, does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Like to try to recreate that and then create a healthier mindset for myself and then healthier relationships for myself and those around me as well.
Yeah, no, they definitely make sense. I mean, you're definitely were trying to do pattern interrupts and rewire the neural pathways in your brain to start recognizing something different in you, that this is the new norm, right? And unless you work on yourself, as you said, unless you start seeking for answers, whether it's by yourself or you get a mentor or you get some sort of help, unless you start doing that, you're gonna get and continue to get stuck in the old habits and old ways, right? So that's something that I empower anyone to do when they're looking at overcoming different obstacles in their lives, whether it's relationships, whether it's, new job or whatever the case may be, right? You have to start looking at that from that perspective. One thing that you mentioned is that you were comfortable and you did not know how to get out of that. And I think that's a very common theme in many different aspects, right? One, we're afraid to be uncomfortable, which means that we're not allowing the opportunity to come into our lives because we're afraid of that being uncomfortable. Yet when we get complacent and comfortable, then that might not be serving us any new purposes. Like, you have to be uncomfortable pretty much every day of your life to start reaching new levels and start doing different things within your life. If you're not willing to step into that, then again, you're getting complacent or being comfortable and you get stuck. And that happened to you, right? So how did you figure out, or what were some of the things that you did to say, you know what, I got to get out of this being comfortable zone into the uncomfortable?
So it's funny that you bring that up, because that's exactly what it was, is if I didn't feel comfortable, I would run away and, get high or get drunk or, go to sleep or, just chronic avoider. Like, I was avoiding anything that was uncomfortable to me. And if it was uncomfortable to me, I wasn't dealing with it or having it or anything. And so I knew I had been working myself to death at, I was working shift hours and, I had a brand new baby. I was by myself and I was like, man, I'm not making enough money to cut it. I am miserable, doing this. I'm missing all these things that I wanted my whole life because somebody else is watching my kid for 12 hours a day. And so I jumped on the MLM wagon and, I found a company called Paparazzi. They had cute jewelry. It was affordable. And I was like, well, if I sell it, then I can get it cheaper for myself. I hadn't bought anything for myself in forever. So I bought a $5 pair of earrings. And then I bought the kit to join the MLM. And before people stop listening, because, MLMs, people are like, oh no, I did it as a way to up my skill set, I guess would be a proper way to say it, because I bought the kit and I was like, okay, I need to get out of my comfort zone. I need to be able to meet new people, but how do I do that without going to a club or going to a bar or going to a party? Like, I didn't know any other way. And so I thought, well, this is a way to interact with people. It's healthy. These people are motivated, they're positive, they're upbeat. And so after I bought the kit, I panicked and I was like, oh my gosh, I know nothing about Facebook. I don't like public speaking. Like I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Called one of my very, very close friends and mentors. And they said, they pretty much lit that fire that I needed lit and just told me like, look, you've got this, get out there, stop worrying about being uncomfortable, go be uncomfortable. That's what you need. And they could not have been more right. Like the more uncomfortable I got, the more progress I saw. And so now I find myself seeking those uncomfortable situations because that's where my growth is. And I did that not only business wise, but personal wise also, because I had a lot of stuff that I needed to heal. And I mean, it's a work in progress. I think we all are, but there was like huge things that I needed to address with myself in order to be the best version of myself for myself and everybody around me. So,
yeah. No, that's good. And I want you to talk about your mission. So I have here that your mission is to reach others in hopes to inspire those who have lost their way, their way of feeling defeated, and motivate others in their personal journey in order for them to reach their own definition of success and happiness. So before that, let's define to you what is success and happiness, and then let's talk about your mission.
For me, I think everybody's, definition of success is different. Some person may be content with, having a house at the end of the block and, a new car in the driveway and working, a 9 to 5. Other people may be content with, being on a TED Talk and writing a book or, something. Like everybody's definition is different. For me, my definition was or is just having quality of life and being able to enjoy being in the present moment. That's something that I took for granted for a very long time. And so I'm making up for lost time. Like I am learning as much as I can. I am inspiring as much as I can. I'm motivating, I'm talking, I'm connecting. I'm trying to make those connections with not only my loved ones, but other people out there, and just spreading hope that, hope and, love that it's out there and that anybody can achieve it, because I know how lost I was. Mm-hmm. And I know how thankful I am that I had people that believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. And I want to be that for other people, as well. So until they can find a way to believe in themselves, like people need cheerleaders, they need mentors and motivators. And if that's the way that I can give back to the world, like that's success for me.
Yeah. And I love that. I think, as you mentioned, the definition of success and happiness is different for every single person. And I always find interesting when people define success based on a monetary value, except I believe that that's a byproduct, right? I don't think that's success. Yeah. You can be very successful, not have a whole lot of money, but you're very happy and you feel very enriched inside and out. And I've seen it too, where people have a lot of money and they're not happy. They might be financially successful, but they're depressed, they're in drugs, they're doing this. I mean, we've seen many cases time after time where people even commit suicide because of depression, right? And so I believe that definitely money is that byproduct. And I always tell people that if you're working for profits, you're doing it wrong. You should be working for purpose, not profits, right? And so that's another thing that goes into that. So Kristin, what's the 2021 looking for you?
So 2021 is all about me merging everything that I've been working on creating. I'm about 2 years in on being, 100% entrepreneur focused. And so I have my Babes on a Budget, which is my online boutique, which kind of gets my girly side out and gets, all of that fun stuff. And it also is a way to inspire women to, feel more confident and love themselves, that self-care that we often forget about just as people, but especially as a mom and, a woman and, the caretaker role in the family. We forget that, we got to take care of ourselves too. So I get to kind of inspire in that respect over there. And then I have my mentoring group, and that is going to be expanding, and I'm very excited about that. So just kind of merging everything together and becoming kind of a hub for people recreating themselves or starting off in their journey to entrepreneurship, where they're like, okay, I'm going for it, but what do I do? So yeah. I'm the person that can help you with that, because I was that person. I had little to no money to my name, and I creatively figured out a way to expand on that. And everybody can do it. It's just, you got to make sure that it's something you're passionate about. Yeah. And I'm definitely passionate about people. Like I'm an introvert, but I'm an extrovert. So yeah. I need my me time, but I also need that interaction with other people. So COVID's been interesting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. No, for sure. So you know what? For those that might be on the fence line of thinking, should I go look for, maybe they lost their job or they're looking to make a career change, and obviously everyone's different. But if they're in the fence line of deciding whether or not they stay with a 9 to 5 or venture into entrepreneurship, what is your advice? Because you obviously went and took the route of being an entrepreneur. What is your advice to those people?
I would say make sure you have a definitive plan, kind of at least a outline of what your expectations moving forward are, and then get started on that. Don't just be like, oh, I quit, and then the next day start your plan. Start your plan, set yourself up for success, so that way when you start actually implementing the plan, you're prepared. Because I had to backtrack a little bit at one point because I underestimated my capabilities, and shame on me for doing that. That was part of that broken mindset thing, but it took time away from me growing because I had to rework things. So if you do want to do the entrepreneur thing, do it for sure. Go for it. I mean, do not hesitate, but get a game plan set up for yourself so that you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of a quote from Les Brown, and he says, it's better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than have an opportunity and not be prepared. So definitely get prepared before you go out for that opportunity, for sure.
Yes. And I love Les Brown, so I like
it. Good. Yeah, no, I love his content. Is pretty awesome. If people wanted to connect with you, where can they find you?
So right now I am a Facebook junkie. You can find me on Facebook. I have all of my groups there. I have my personal page there, and I will be expanding out from that throughout the year. I have a whole bunch of things in the works, and I hope that everybody comes and follows along with the journey. That's part of what my following, I think, appreciate about me, is because I will share the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between with my followers, because I feel like that's important to do. It's not all, rainbows and butterflies. Sometimes it's, other stuff. Sometimes showing people the reality of trying to create something for yourself gives them a better opportunity to know what to expect and prepare for it, I think.
Yeah.
So
I love it. And talking about a broken mindset and dealing with all of that and getting out of that or coming out of that, are there any habits or things you're doing now on a day-to-day basis to put you in a different state of mind? Do you have any of that stuff?
Learning to give myself grace. So I think that was I was so hard on myself when I first started my journey into entrepreneurship. I was like, look, like, failure is not an option. I still feel that way. Failure is not an option. Mm-hmm. Like, if I fail at something, I go and I rework it and I try it differently, or I take a different avenue or whatever. But, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, I am my own worst, enemy, or I am my worst critic or whatever. Give yourself grace. If you get up and you accomplish, getting closer to your goal, then the day wasn't a failure. Just because you don't accomplish everything right away, doesn't mean that you're not going to accomplish it. And sometimes your results are you don't see them right away. So staying persistent and also consistent with what you're trying to achieve, it may not seem like you're getting there, but you are. And I think that's one thing. Until I reflected back, I was like, man, I've made it a little bit further than I gave myself credit for. So just trying to be humble, but, be kind to yourself during the whole process, because if you're not kind to yourself, then how can you expect it from anybody else?
Yeah, definitely. I love that. One last question for you. If the people that are listening to us and are watching us, if they're going through any challenge, whatever that might be, what will be one thing you can tell them that they can start doing to overcome that challenge?
I would say replacing the negative content. We are as a society, we are so focused on content, whether it's TV, social media, books, anything. If you're listening to a song or watching a TV show that's negative, or talking about all of the bad things in the world, then you're not going to have the easiest time having that positive mindset. So just refocusing your attention on more positive things, I think, is a very good way to start to kind of break that cycle of negative thinking.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Kristin, I gotta say, I really enjoyed our time together. I enjoyed all the things you had to contribute to the show. So thank you again for being here. Is there anything else you want to say before I let you go?
Just thank you so much for the opportunity. You have definitely inspired me immensely, and I feel so blessed that we have crossed paths and been able to, work together and do this podcast. And I can't wait to see what else we can come up with. I'm so excited, and thank you again.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm definitely looking forward. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier today, is that network, right? The network of people. And even if it's, through social media or distance because of COVID, it's critical to have that group of people. And so I know we've connected on Facebook and all that stuff. And again, it's so critical, and people need to take that. And that was a huge golden nugget that people take for granted, for sure.
Yes, I agree. If you have your mindset to it, then there are ways to network. No matter if you're stuck at home or you're 50,000 miles away from somebody, the world has made it to where we can connect regardless of any of those things. So if you want it bad enough, then you'll figure out a way to connect, and that's the best way to do things, guys. Word of mouth is, still above all the best way to create a way for yourself. So
excellent. So Kristin, once again, thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure you connect with Kristin. Find her on Facebook. Check us out on your favorite podcast platform, and stay tuned for the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Till next time.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform, where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.